It's my delight to share our next presentation, An Analog Trip to Phobos, presented by Mounir, Alafrangy. Just a quick introduction. So he's the Commercial Innovations Manager and Technology Lead for the International Space Station ISS National Laboratory, with an MS in Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering from the George Washington University. Mr. Alafrangy has over 20 years in entrepreneurial experience spearheading several innovations from concept to prototype, as well as providing project management in diverse fields, including mechanical and systems engineering and prototype development. I hear he's also an artist. So welcome to the stage, Mounir.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. Very impressed and very thankful to be invited here. I met so many cool people. I'm making new friends by the minute, so very excited to be here. So yeah, I am an engineer by training. I'm an artist as well. I typically paint really large canvases in front of a crowd and hopefully get some bidding going on and try to donate them for things like traumatic brain injury and cancer research. Almost going to be a father pretty soon, so that's exciting. Real soon. Very, very soon. My phone is not on vibrate, it's on get on a plane now if it rings. So I'm very happy to be here. Got a lot of slides, so let's jump right into it. That's the HRP patch over there, located at the Johnson Space Center. That's where our mission took place. This is our patch over here, and at the bottom it symbolizes the type of engineering that we did in school. And our mission was in Campaign 5, Mission 3, where they removed a lot of the privacy from our mission, because why not? So JSC is over here. Most of you are familiar with it, but for those of you that aren't that familiar, Building 220 is right there under the orange arrow. That was our home for 2 months, massive hangar. And the next slide will show us what the habitat actually looks like. Looks familiar, I think, to everybody. And by the way, just a quick note, that tiny little patch over there, I really like that patch because it shows a human being on there that's sexless, doesn't talk about the background or age or anything like that. So that really means a lot to me. Door 2 is the main entrance there. That's what the cross-section, I suppose, looks like. It's really a 2-story structure. And the top is where our bunks were. We'll take a look at that later. So our mission was simple. Go to Phobos, the simulation, collect some samples, and turn around and come back. Phobos is the first Martian moon, and there's not a lot going on there. So it wasn't that interesting when we actually did get there. So some of the former missions, NASA's been very successful with whatever equation they have for interviewing people. So far, they've got a 100% success rate, except for the mission that Hurricane Harvey hit hard, and they had to evacuate that because mission control folks couldn't show up to work, not because the habitat was in danger. But everything else, 100%. So whatever they're doing is doing right. But I do agree with one of my colleagues earlier that talked about the emotional intelligence, which I think is very important, especially when you're in stressful situations. That's our crew. We never met each other. We're all engineers. So we had about, I would say about a month between virtual and physically looking at each other and talking to each other and learning about our habits, having lunch together and chatting while we're going through training. We all want to win. We all want to be the best. So there's definitely that in common. So some of the pre-mission training, which was amazing, interesting stuff. This one here, MMSEV, was something we looked forward to, and we weren't very good at it. What MCC did is they trained us, and some of the former astronauts trained us to know what the buttons did, but not beyond that. We had to figure it out on our own. So you'd have 2 people that are at the piloting station, and then the other 2 folks they're donning their gear and they're doing the landing on Phobos, and we're training on our way there. Guess what happened? Once in a while, we donned our virtual reality gear. My new friend over there knows a little bit about that, and there was a glitch in the system. And so this popped up. You're confined, there are no windows, nothing but plastic and metal. And then this pops up while they're rebooting the system, and for just a few minutes, the joy that I felt to see the distance, the mountaintops. Are you kidding me? Trees and the leaves are moving because of the wind, floating islands. Okay, I'll take that too. The ocean, and I wish those minutes, I wish they kept on trying to figure out what the problem and not fix it, because it felt so good. So from my perspective, and I'm not representing the national lab right now or NASA or CASES, from my perspective, VR is definitely a must in any long exploration anything. That's another picture. I mean, it almost brings tears to my eyes to see it again. Safer. This is one of the things we got trained on. It reminds you that when something's in motion, it stays in motion until it's acted upon. What we did here is we used this device, Safer here, to take a look at the solar panels and see if there are any damaged solar panels. But if you forget how many pulses in propulsion you took on the XYZ, you're not coming back. It's so hard to figure out. So we had to pay a lot of attention to that. Draper's Lunar Lander, I believe this one was developed a long time ago. We had to conduct about 7 different things at the same time. Call out how much fuel you have left, call out your elevation, push certain buttons depending on what happens on your screen. And in the meantime, you are controlling the ship. And so if you forget something, you lose, and we didn't want to lose. And then we have Robot, which is basically controlling the Canadarm. We're grappling cargo. It's a big deal for us because we don't want to miss on it. I was very bad at this when I first started, and everybody else was better than me. And I couldn't figure out why. Why can't I do it? I'm an artist. I've got very steady hands, got awesome hand-eye coordination. So I kept on at it, and eventually I started hitting all green. All green stands for you're not missing any. And when you get a completely green screen, you shout it out on the loop, and MCCs tell you to be quiet. But eventually I became pretty good at it, and this was something that if you didn't sleep very well the night before, or you're stressed out, you miss your family, you miss the sun, it will translate into this, and you are not going to be able to catch all the cargo. This is what it looks like. You guys are all familiar with that. So Ingress was a big party. We weren't sure what we were getting ourselves into. Family and friends came to see us, and as soon as we went through that door and we closed the door, that door was to be closed for 45 days, a little bit more actually. Now NASA can't legally lock us in, so at any point we can walk out. Now knowing that, of course we didn't do that because that's millions of dollars of research that just goes down the drain, right? But knowing that, what does that do? Does that cause additional stress? Knowing that you don't have that option in space, does that eliminate that whole idea because it's not possible? Some of the things that I thought about. In mission, okay, let's take a look and see what happened. The playbook was my guide, and I don't know if everybody's familiar with this or not, but I wish they would have an app on the phone where you had the playbook, especially for companies. You can see what everybody else is doing. You can also access some of the information on specific tasks that are taking place. But you're also following the red line in a way where it just felt like some days you're just behind on everything. Like you were looking for a tool, you couldn't find it. And so you're asking everybody else, but they're doing their thing. And when you do find the tool, you had 10 minutes, you've lost 5 minutes. And now you're playing catch up, kind of like what happened a few minutes ago here. But I think it's very successful because you can always see where people are. Playbook in 20 years, I predict, will give you a lot more of this. AI would be commanding that playbook. It will learn about your behaviors, learn about the things that you forget, especially if you're conducting an experiment, for example, and highlight those things and remind you of certain things. Next slide, please. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but there are cameras everywhere except for the toilet and the shower. They put curtains there. They were very nice to us, but they removed all the doors. And so they're watching us the entire time. This is outside the habitat in the hangar. That's me taking a picture of one of the screens. So yeah, privacy is gone and you had to kind of deal with that. Mission day 1. We're excited. We're trying to figure out where things are. There are compartments at the bottom on the floor here on the first floor, L1. L2 has compartments on its floor as well. 3D printer over here, more compartments, food up here, ecoless system. So a lot going on, a lot to learn about, and we were trying to familiarize ourselves with that. We grew lettuce, and watching it grow brought us a lot of happiness. I love plants personally, but I think my colleagues also enjoyed plants. So watching those grow and then wondering why one wasn't growing and trying to, science the X out of it was fun. We weren't allowed to eat it though, but we tried it, and wow, the enjoyment that we got from eating something that wasn't dehydrated was pretty nice. The microbiome was also important. We had to do that at least once a week. One of us did. I wasn't a big fan of it, but yeah. And then Triops shrimp. Anybody know what these things are? Anyone heard of these before? Okay, one person in the back. Yeah, I didn't know this until 2019 when I did this mission. They're like prehistoric creatures. They gave us a bag of sand and it had eggs in it, and we put it in water and these things came out, and then they grew. And then one of them started eating everybody else. And so it really messed us up for a little while there. But it was really nice to see them, to see life swimming around in a habitat that's so enclosed. So I think that's key in any deep space exploration. Ecosystem was a very interesting and complex machine. I looked forward to this. It had a lot of steps. The procedure was very complex because you don't want to turn it off for too long in the simulation. And you needed specific tools, but some of those tools were used for other areas as well. So if Tim here has to do the ecoless maintenance, and I use the tool that he needs, and I just put it anywhere, and he's looking for it, and he only has 10 minutes to do the ecoless system. At some point, when you have that compiled group of stressors on top of each other, missing your family, no sunlight, can't eat what you want, can't exercise when you want, time delay was thrown in there, 10 minutes each way, plus whatever you have to write. He might start getting aggravated with Mounir because Mounir keeps just throwing tools around, and that's not the way it is. Can artificial intelligence help with that so Tim doesn't have to confront me, and then maybe I'm like, well, you did this, and now there's conflict. Can we reduce that from the get-go, where AI could notice that and say, hey, let's give the entire group a quick training or reminder on how to use tools. That way I don't feel like I'm being centered. That's just an example, but I do think AI is huge in here. This is the other side of MMSEV. This is me and my crewmate here about to don our gear. This is what we looked like here. Phobos was a very black and white planet. We could see Mars in the background, which added a little color. But even then, I really enjoyed the fact that I could see at a distance. So that's what it looks like, the simulation. Now that's not really Phobos, it's an asteroid, but that's the simulation that we looked. So we would fix our orbit onto that and start landing there. And we began to memorize the craters and the boulders, and we even started having our favorite places. Exercising was a big deal for us. I'm a runner, I like to move around, I'm a swimmer, and we were very limited. We did cardio one day and then weightlifting the other day, and the weights, were basic weights. Obviously the simulation, we were in gravity, so we took advantage of that. But you couldn't do much else after that. The one spot, and I'll tell you that, has anybody been in this habitat? No. So the one spot, if you want to stretch your arms, is right over here. Anywhere else and you're going to hit something. So that's a problem, I think. I think a habitat should be designed where you can at least stretch out. It feels natural for us. We've been doing it all our life. So I think that's another element that we should consider when building something like this. So yeah, we exercised. We didn't want to miss a minute of it. And even MCC said that we were one of the strongest training crew member, and they would alert us if we go over because they didn't want our mission to be different than everybody else's. This is the VRS. This is what I built on my way out of grad school. It's a prototype that is limb independent, and the idea is it uses the the walls of the spaceship for you to exercise, for you to stretch and do different things. White space is tough. We had a lot of white space in our playbook that was thrown around, and the most stressful part for me was when you had 4 hours where you're just hanging out, and then at some point you had to do the eco system, which is a vital piece of all the tasks that you have to do. You're dormant, you can't exercise, you can't nap, you don't want to forget, so you're looking for it, you're checking your phone, how many hours, H minus 45 minutes, H minus 20 minutes, and half the time I'm late to it. Can you believe that? I'd be late to it. I've been thinking about it for 4 hours, we're watching stuff, and then I'm just late. And so perhaps AI could be helpful here, where it can activate your mind, so it could keep you sharp, so when you jump into it, you're good to go. I took a bunch of notes, did a lot of sketches. That's where we were. So again, no privacy. And when the lights go off, all those electronics lights and ecosystem had a bunch of lights to it. You can still see very clearly. So that was an issue for me. I guess I had to cover my eyes, and that helped a little bit. And you could see some of the cameras here at the lower left picture that are monitoring us. That's where most of everything happened. We played some games there, we ate there, we watched TV there. I introduced my crewmates to The Office, which they haven't watched. I was pretty surprised by that, but it helped pass the time. Laundry was pretty tough right now. We jettison on board the ISS the clothes after 3 days, I think. And that's not very sustainable, especially for deep exploration missions, but this isn't either. I mean, you could see the entry of the door here is 55% occupied. And that's a very difficult door to walk into. If you notice, you have to lift your feet to get in, but you also have to duck. And I bet you my head put a mark at the top there, and my knee busted on the right side there many, many times. And so your clothes get 2 days to dry out, and you have to do it by hand, and they don't really get clean. So that's an area for technologists to think about. What can we do there? Okay, gotta move fast. That's where all our food ended up looking like. Don't worry about it. If it said lasagna or meatballs, it all ended up looking like that. And stay away from this. Be kind to your crewmates. If you see that around, you don't want to do that. We tried to think out of the box, and we actually successfully made brownies, and that made us very, very happy to try something new. So we had some unscheduled events where the alarms would go off, the light would go off, blinding light. It's very loud. We didn't know what's going on. We had to stop what we're doing. And all these are stressors. We got to figure out where the issue is. We got to find the procedure, and guess what happens when you have a missing part in the procedure? Now what do? Throw in 10 minutes in time delay in communication. Do you wait for MCC to give you directions, or do you choose something and go? And conflict could happen amongst the crew members there. So when things like that happen, how quickly does the crew become a unit again is an interesting thing to think about. We tried to fool MCC because there was a lot of white space in all our calendars on the playbook. And I think we were right. They were going to give us an event, but then they just pushed it on later on because they weren't going to give us that. So we tried to have fun with the crew. They were our family and friends. We had 30 minutes once a week to speak to our loved ones, which is bittersweet. Because the closer you get to that Tuesday at 3 o'clock, the more excited you get. But you know that soon enough, you're going to have to wait the entire cycle to speak to someone else. And one thing that I missed so much is change. Everything was so the same. And I just wish there was a new compartment that we can open up, or a new dish that we could eat. Egress was a big party, and a very loud party. They knocked on the door, we opened the door, we came out, and people interviewing us, cameras, pictures, hugs from people we don't even know. But when you've been in confinement for so long, and you're very limited on who you're talking to, and you've got all that happening, that is another stressor that there's some literature that's written about that. That's, yep, so that's us. And I think we're getting close to the end. If you ever can take a tour and you're in Houston, definitely take a tour and look around. You'll see some messages that we left for supporters and visitors. And that's it.